Let me ask you a question. If you have written a manuscript before you publish it, do you need an editor? How many think you do? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 7 of you. And there's a few saying, nope, I don't. Well, I'm going to give you 4 reasons why you need an editor. Okay, you ready for the reasons?
Yes.
Well, let me ask you another question. How many of you can afford an editor?
Well, you're going to have to.
Not a hand went up.
Well, I would say
That's another
yes.
story.
You have to. It's like it's part of the book expenses.
Okay.
You're
All right.
spending a lot of time, so.
Let's go through the 4 reasons. The first reason is editing is much more than fixing typos. Okay, now here's a bit of a list. I'm just going to read through it. Editing ensures your meaning is clear and sentences flow smoothly. Removes awkward phrasing, redundancies, or jargon that might confuse readers. Corrects grammar, spelling, punctuation, and word usage. Standardizes formatting, capitalization, and style. Maintains consistency in names, timelines, and details across chapters. Strengthens the organization of ideas, paragraphs, and chapters. Improves pacing so the narrative doesn't drag and people get tired of waiting for something to happen and stop reading your book. Or it will check to make sure you're not running through it so fast the reader can't keep up with you. It ensures a logical progression of the arguments you're making to prove your point or the plot in your storyline. And it highlights the strongest parts of your writing by trimming the fat. The fat is all that stuff you put in there because you think you need it in there and you don't need it in there. And trust me, I wrote a 200,000 word manuscript. About 10, 15 years later, after I had learned a few things about writing, I rewrote that manuscript to 25,000 words. That's all I needed. I had a lot in there that just wasn't necessary. Okay. Now, it's highly unlikely that one person can do everything editing requires without help, because your mind plays a major role in what you see with your eyes. Second reason you need an editor. Your mind tells you what you're seeing. It's called perceptual expectations. Your brain is not passive when it receives visual information. It interprets what we see based on prior knowledge, context, and rhythm that predicts what we see and sometimes overrides the reality of what we see. You might type, I went to the store to buy milk and eggs. But the sentence on your paper says, I went to the store to buy milk and eggs. But you don't see the second and, because your brain prioritizes meaning and fluency over exact detail. And you won't even see that second and because you've got everything you need there to understand the sentence. And the second and in the sentence did not change the meaning, so your brain isn't worried about that. Third reason, and this isn't like an official term, it's just something somebody made up with, is typoglycemia. Readers, yeah, it's not a legit technical term, it's just something somebody made up. Readers can often understand scrambled words because the brain uses context, pattern recognition, and predictive processing. If you have the handout, there are 3 examples. Who wants to read the first example? Just the ones I had, if somebody could share. Okay. Anybody want to try it? Wait, where I did put them. Yeah, she's reading it. Go ahead. Go ahead.
This sentence is easier to read than you might think.
Yeah, no problem. And it's a mess, isn't it? All right. Somebody read number 2.
Writing often relies on context and rhythm.
Look at that. Say, if we can read that, why do we need an editor? You do need an editor.
Yes.
Now, number 3.
Full of typo.
Yeah. Somebody, this is the long one. Number 3, who can read that? Easy peasy, huh? Now, we do not decode each letter individually when we read. We read words as whole units because they look the same. And we've memorized that image, so to say, and we know what that is instantly. And also there are, if you noticed in that, well, in all of them, they have any word 3 letters or less is spelled correctly. If you look in those examples. We read by whole units, words as whole units, by recognizing familiar words, shapes, and patterns. In the examples, the first and last letters in each word are in the correct place. Also, the articles that precede nouns and all words that are 3 letters or less are spelled correctly, and that's why you could read it. Our brains use surrounding words to predict what the jumbled word is likely to be. So if you can read a word like the ones that are mixed up in this sentence, say you have a word in your manuscript and there's only 1 letter out of place, your brain will know what it is and skip over it, and you won't even see that 1 letter out of place. That's why you always need a second set of eyes. If you write something and you set it aside for a couple of weeks and you go back and it's like, what's all this? Because you missed it when you were writing it. You too? Most people have. Okay, common words are easy to recognize even when scrambled because our brains have seen them so often that it can autocorrect errors almost instantly. Now, the 4th reason you need an editor, and I've said this before many times, you don't know what you don't know. A pastor showed me his book and told me, I didn't need an editor. I fixed all the grammar problems. Well, that was part of his problem. He thought editing was just grammar. And it's not. It's more than that. I opened his book, first chapter, first sentence, grammar problem. But if he didn't know that was a grammar problem, how's he going to fix it? You can't fix a problem if you don't know that it is a problem. The grammar you learned in school 20 to 50 years ago, yes, 50 years ago for me, is not adequate to edit your own manuscript. Grammar rules change. One thing I remember from English class back in the 70s, and I'm talking early 70s, you never start a sentence with a conjunction. It was an absolute no-no. Today, it's acceptable. Pick up any newspaper and you will see sentences starting with and, but. In fact, the Bible has a lot of sentences that start with conjunctions. Now, the ever-changing grammar rules prompted the development of style guides to eliminate confusion and maintain consistency that makes writing easier to read. Look at the example. Most of you have probably seen this on Facebook maybe. The first sentence is, let's eat, comma, grandma. That comma tells us, grandma, let's go eat. You take that comma out and we have, let's eat grandma. Grandma's for lunch, okay? So how important is it you got your commas in the right place? Completely changes the meaning, 1 comma.
Wow.
If you don't follow grammar rules, it can confuse the meaning of the sentence. If everyone follows different rules, it creates confusion. That is why style guides are necessary. There are dozens of style guides. We'll just look briefly at 3. The MLA is the Modern Language Association, and you can find each of these style guides in Word, Microsoft Word, if you use that. And the Modern Language Association is common in humanities, literature, and language studies. It emphasizes author page citation style and formatting for literary analysis. And then the AP, Associated Press Style Book, which is standard for journalism, media, and corporate communications. It prioritizes brevity, consistency, and accessibility for mass audiences. The accepted style for prose in publishing is the Chicago Manual of Style, which is often called the editor's Bible. It's the go-to reference for grammar, citations, publishing, and publishing standards. The latest edition is 1,100 pages. You can get a hardcover for anywhere from 50 to 75. There's an abbreviated version of 278 pages that you could pick up. I'm not going to say the word because it's a bad word here. For $15. The Kindle version is $6. A laminated quick reference is available for $9, and you can get an annual online subscription for $48, and you always have the most current style guide. The Chicago Manual of Style became the accepted standard for publishing in 1969 after the publication of its 12th edition. The latest edition is the 18th, and there are changes in each new edition. Poets do not have a single codified style guide. They have resources like the Curator's Guide and Poetry's Foundation's form collections. Those sites help poets balance creativity with craft, much like prose writers rely on the Chicago Manual of Style. And I think I have a, if I remember, okay. If you're a poet and you want some information about the Curator's Guide for Poets, I have, I think, about 4 copies there for those who are interested. Okay. Now, the problem with needing an editor is the expense. Not one hand went up here when I said, can you afford one? Because they are very expensive. Editing your manuscript is the single most expensive step in publishing and the one that most directly impacts the quality of your book. If they can't make heads or tails out of what you wrote, you might have a beautiful cover, but that's all you've got. Now, if you have one of the handouts, there's a chart under what on page 5. Note that there are 4 types on page 2.
Yeah, we're on page 2.
Oh, okay, because
You're
I
page
printed
5.
front and
Yeah,
back. It's my page 5. I'm on a different page. Okay. I've got the teacher's edition. You have the student edition. Okay, the first thing a book should go through is a developmental edit, which looks at the big picture and the plot, and is it flowing, and is it logical? Then you come down to the sentence, which is line editing, and that is to make sure that your sentences are clear and easy to understand. Then you go to the grammar and the punctuation, which is the copy edit. And the final step is proofreading, and it's usually done by a publisher. It would be done during the formatting, and that's where whoever's formatting will simply, if they see any typos, they'll catch them. It's the last stand to catch all the typos. Based on this chart, a full edit at the cheapest price for an 80,000 word manuscript would cost you $8,000. That's a lot of money for most people, especially if you're independently publishing. And that's why it is so difficult to get picked up by a traditional publisher. You're going to have to something that just blows their socks off before they're going to risk that kind of money producing your book, and it may not sell. You can reduce that price by reducing your word count. Get rid of the fat.
We've had that talk.
Will a publisher or traditional publishers ever take a book that's been independently published and then do it?
It depends on the publisher. I mean, you can find almost anything out there. It just depends on what the publisher is willing to do or not do. Okay, you can also reduce that price if you are able to do one or more of the 4 necessary edits before you hire an editor. Now, I'm going to tell you my little journey with editors, which, it took to find one that we could work together. It is a bit of a process. And Face Mystery went through 5 editors before I found something that I was comfortable, was professionally done. And during this journey, I paid one person $2,200, another one $25, and then, yeah. 25. Okay, this little book was this big fat book. Okay, before, this is the original Face Mystery. It's called A Reason to Believe. I'm going to give you all the story. Okay.
Okay.
Bruce did the whole thing. Well, I'll get there. Okay. After I wrote the original script, I researched how to get published. And the research revealed, and this was way back in the day, that I needed an agent to sell it to a traditional publishing house. The prospects of getting an agent to represent me were 0, based on being a new author and not knowing anything. The other option was self-publishing, which is now called independent publishing, and that is very expensive as well. It's no longer frowned upon, though. When I started, it was frowned upon. You're just vain. That's why you're independently publishing, But it's not frowned upon anymore. Okay. Before I spent a lot of money turning my manuscript into a book, I wanted to know if I had any talent to write, and I wanted the opinion to be from a professional editor who did not know me. Your friends and your family love you, okay? They might just tell you what they think you want to hear because they love you and don't want to hurt your feelings. You need somebody who's willing to hurt your feelings, to tell you the brutal truth. And honestly, I was looking for a way out of writing. Even though God was leading me in that direction, I never had an interest in being a writer. I didn't pay attention in English class. So, it wasn't my thing. I did not believe I had a talent for writing, and I was sure a professional would confirm that belief. I did a Google search for a Christian editor who wrote evaluations, and I found Tony, who taught writing at Johns Hopkins University. Before I hired him, I read 2 of the 5-page evaluations he had written for other writers. And I read 2 published books that he edited. Satisfied he was a professional who would give me an honest opinion, I sent him my 200,000-word manuscript, thinking I would receive an evaluation like the other writers received that explained their strengths and weaknesses and offered advice on how to improve the manuscript. But that's not what I got. Because God knows when you're trying to weasel out of something. Is there an unopened water bottle somebody could send down here? My mouth's getting a little dry. Thank you. Thank you. What I got is I'm holding in my hand, and I have kept it since the early 2000s. And if I ever doubt what I'm doing, I can always go back and read it. This is what Tony, and I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm going to read 2 paragraphs. And these 2 paragraphs, the whole thing is like these 2 paragraphs I'm going to read. This is analysis by Nicholas Marco. Teena, I find Steps of Faith, which was the original name when I taught it, a dynamic, refreshing, and incisive grand teaching tour of the nature and meaning of faith. Your choice to unpack the subject as modeled by the father of the faithful, Abraham, is, I sense, an anointed one indeed, especially because it allows your reader full understanding of how true faith and true foibles can coexist in us all two humans, and how grace alone enables us to walk as overcomers despite those flaws, sins, and weaknesses to which the flesh is heir. Because you achieve these things so well, you offer, without compromise and without self-righteousness, hope for the journey and plenty of equipment with which believers can themselves follow in Abraham's steps for undertaking the monumental task of pursuing lessons, first in live teachings, then in book form. I thank you personally, for I've received from your work many valuable insights that will help me in my walk with the Lord. The other two evaluations I read, they were not thanked. Third, throughout Steps of Faith, you challenge the reader to loving good deeds done on truly spiritual basis rather than in the fleshly spirit of works righteousness. On the last score, I am particularly grateful to you. Your exposure of the nature of Phariseeism in its many pseudo spiritual guises and your antidotal continual pointing of the reader to a walk of faith through grace are among the most precious values of this work. Phariseeism, in one form or another, rooted as it is in unbelief and pride, is one, if not the chief plague of the church, that seems always ready to rear its head. You show your reader clearly what this monster looks like and how true faith can drive it far hence. In so doing, you do the body of Christ and me personally great service, for which I again thank you. All told, quite an achievement of grace and wisdom, this book. That blew my argument with God out the water. Okay, at that point, I didn't feel like, I'm just going to have to do something. God didn't give me any wiggle room to say I don't have talent to write and should not pursue publishing. And he read not the 25,000, he read the 300-page version with all the fat. I couldn't afford to pay him for the editing, and I told him that. But he believed me. He believed in the manuscript so much that it should be published. He cut his price in half and said I could pay by chapter as money was available. I couldn't afford that price either. Okay, I got 2 little kids at home. I need diapers. Okay, not a book. I thanked him and declined. He said if I ever change my mind, the offer stands. And I put it in a closet on the top shelf to collect dust. I had no intention of changing my mind until a few months later, a friend gave me money for my writing ministry. I did not know I had a ministry. I'm like, are you crazy? What ministry? Your writing ministry. I don't have a writing ministry. I don't have a ministry at all. She insisted I take the money, and she continued giving me money that I put in an envelope because I didn't know what to do with the money, and she absolutely would not take the money back. Then one day she came in, gave me some money and said, Teena, what you doing with the money? And I don't want to tell her I'm putting it in an envelope. And I thought about Tony's offer, so I said, oh, I'm having an editor prepare it for publishing. Then at least I go to hell for being a liar. I went home, contacted Tony, said, is your offer still good? And we started work on it.
God made a way.
Now, yeah, he would not. Look, and that's not the first time I challenged him. I challenged him for like 10 years, and he always arose to the challenge. In fact, I'll just throw this one in here because I thought I was so smart. I said, God, if I have a ministry, then you just put me in ministry, and I'm not going to help you, and I'm not even going to try. You just put me in ministry, and then I'll know I have a ministry. We think we're so smart. I walked into the church, and I picked up the church bulletin. My husband was children's pastor, and it had always read Rod Myers, children's pastor. I picked it up and looked at it, and it said, Rod and Teena Myers, children's pastors. And I'm like, with a stroke of a pen, he said, here, Tina, no problem. You're in ministry. Oh, yeah, yeah. Now, I had some of the problems I had with editors was not their fault, it was mine. Because I was like that pastor, I thought editing was just fixing the grammar. And they had a little more knowledge than I had. I didn't know there were 4 levels of editing. In my mind, I paid Tony to put commas in the right place and correct misspelled words. In his mind, I paid him to do the first 2 levels, a developmental edit and a line edit. About a third of the way into the book where I'm seeing typos and things, I'm like, what are you doing? You know? And we had a little talk, and I almost quit, but I said, okay, no, I'll just finish it. Okay, I'll just finish it. I'm more than halfway through it. Lesson learned. If you're going to hire an editor, it's important to know what type of editing you need and what the editor is offering. When we finished, Tony recommended Publish America. I don't think they're called Publish America anymore, but this was right at the beginning of print-on-demand publishing, and they were using print-on-demand. They advertised themselves as a traditional publisher, and because they did not charge authors to produce their book. They paid royalties, and they paid the author a $1 advance for the rights to print and sell the book for 7 years. I didn't care, and it didn't cost me anything. So I said, okay, I'll just sign it, and I got my $1 advance. Publish America's editor edited the manuscript I already paid Tony to edit. I assume she's going to catch anything Tony missed. This will be great. It'll be even better. At that time, it was standard practice for pronouns that referred to God to be treated as a pronoun. I didn't know that, and I did not capitalize them. Tony didn't say anything about them not being capitalized either. She was using a style guide that required them to be capitalized, and she made a mess. They were not a Christian publisher, and their editor, I doubt, was a Christian. So she missed a whole lot of pronouns that she didn't know was referring to God. Also, I had put in italics all the quotes from the Bible that I had used to distinguish them from my writing. She did not use italics to set off the quotes. And sometimes you couldn't tell the difference between what was a quote from the Bible and what was me talking. Okay, it was like in some places it's like, I'm not saying that's a quote. That sounds like I'm saying that. This is bad. Okay, she really made a mess of it. I had 2 weeks to read and edit the manuscript and send them a list of any errors they missed. 15 pages of corrections later, my time ran out. I sent it to the editor with a note, forget about the pronoun, we're not going to fix that, it's too big of a mess, just implement these other corrections. She did not apply any of the corrections. She just sent it down the conveyor belt. Well, you get what you pay for. I received a decent looking book, which is this book. This is the first manuscript I wrote and was published.
Tina, what outfit was it that messed you up like that?
What do you mean, what outfit?
Who was it that you sent to
oh, that was Publish America. They were a publisher.
Oh, okay, so they're bad.
Well, they don't really exist anymore, and they don't print everybody's book anymore. I think they move more towards printing things for educational purposes. But Publish America doesn't exist anymore. Okay. The editing was so bad, and at that time the retail price was so high, $25 for a paperback book. It's a ridiculous amount of money. So I just refused to sell it. I didn't care. I didn't want to be an author anyhow, so I got a book. 7 years later, the rights returned to me, and by that time I was writing the Faith, Beliefs, and Spirituality blog for NOLA.com. Now, at that time, I had no interest in publishing another book. And I was able to get on NOLA.com because the printed page disdained the internet. They didn't think you were a real journalist if you were writing for the internet. So they really didn't want to have anything to do with it. But they really were not thinking, because I looked up the stats of how many people were visiting the internet site as compared to their circulation, which was probably about 200,000. But the internet site was getting 1 million hits a month. So even if I'm on there and buried, out of 1 million hits a month, somebody's going to find me. And I think I was having a consistently 2,000 a month. And each week, 400 unique views each week. And one pastor commented to me, "That's more than most churches. You got 400 visitors a week." So, lesson learned, if you have a Christian book, you do need a Christian editor, because if they're not going to understand your concepts. So now let's move on to the third editor, because I didn't have any interest in publishing another book until God led me to start this writing group in 2018. It had been a while since I published anything more than a blog post. I eventually decided I can't lead writers who want to publish if I'm not writing and publishing too, and I need to return to it. And I had learned a lot about writing since A Reason to Believe was published, so I took my 200-word manuscript and rewrote it into 25,000 words manuscript without losing anything that was important. The basic core of it is still there. A friend offered to edit for free. Now, she was the mayor of Mandeville's secretary, and she wrote all his speeches. So I felt like, I'm going to get a good edit. And it's free. That's even better. So I sent her one chapter at a time to work on when she had time. I wasn't in a hurry. She did a good job on the grammar, but she did not agree with my theology. So she helped me out by rewriting sections of my book to fit her theology.
No.
She did not know where I was going with what I was saying. She's only getting one chapter at a time, so she didn't know where I was going. And her corrections were throwing off the flow and sending the manuscript in a different direction. I had to rewrite all her rewrites. I stopped sending her chapters, and fortunately, she never asked why. And we just forgot about it. Okay. So I decided I need a true professional editor to do this. But the lesson I learned,
A professional Christian.
yes. Lesson learned, friends are not your for editing. I don't care if your friend taught English for 40 years and is retired. The English she taught probably doesn't fit the Chicago Manual of Style today. Now, I knew a pastor whose son worked as Joyce Myers' ghostwriter. He gave me his son's contact information, and when I contacted Frank, he had already left Myers' ministry and started his own editing service, and he had several well-known ministers as his clients, nationally known people like Joyce Myers. My 25,000 words saved me a ton of money. Get the fat out. Now, sometimes you can negotiate with editors. It just depends on the editor. I requested a payment plan that he agreed to. I paid him 1/3 of the money in advance. When he completed 1/3 of the manuscript, he would send it to me, and then I had the option whether we were going to continue or not. And if I wanted to continue, I would pay him the second third. When I received the first third of the manuscript, I noticed the writing did not sound like me. Guess who it sounded like? Joyce Myers.
Oh, really?
He was her ghostwriter.
Yeah.
Joyce didn't write a lot of that stuff y'all are reading. She has a ghostwriter. And I'm reading this, and it's like, I don't say things like that. What the heck? So I took issue, and he promised to stick to my voice. And so I said, well, let's just keep going, because I need to write and publish, because I'm leading people who are writing and publishing. Then another problem developed. Abraham was his favorite Bible character. I was pointing out Abraham's flaws to give people hope that you don't have to be perfect for God to honor your faith, which is the truth. Anything I said that made Abraham look like less than God offended him. He wasn't the professional I thought he was, but we were more than halfway through it. So I decided we'll finish and I'll fix whatever he did that I don't agree with. After I made the final payment, I also learned that he let his teenage daughter do the copy editing, the grammar. I ended up rewriting the manuscript and correcting a lot of errors that she missed. Lesson learned, paying a professional price does not guarantee a professional edit. It will. It's okay. Just hang on, girl. We're going to come to the good stuff. It's coming.
The best is yet to come.
Okay.
The best is here, okay?
I made the acquaintance of Bruce Barber, who is the co-founder of Barber Publishing, the original owners of it. They've since sold it. And I noticed, and Bruce has spoke to us, and his wife have spoke to us several times, and they came to the bookstore and did, answer questions y'all had about publishing. So when I saw that he had added producing books for independent authors to his list, I hired him because I was confident I would get a professional job from someone whose family had been in professional publishing for 3 generations. He's the great nephew of D.L. Moody, Bruce is. He had served in executive positions for traditional publishing houses and, of course, founded Barber Publishing with his Uncle Barber. Anytime I brought a problem to his attention, he never argued with me. He said, "I'm on it, Teena." And he would go fix the problem to my satisfaction. It was the absolute best experience I had. And he did everything. He didn't just do the editing, everything, like a traditional publisher would do. You give them the manuscript and they turn it into a book. And this was the first time out of the 5 editors, I finally was satisfied that this was something worthy of asking people money for, not full of errors. He was great. He was also very expensive. That baby cost me $5,000. But he did everything. That wasn't just the editing. If you wanted just the editing, I imagine he could arrange that as well. Okay, here's the good news. After 5 editors, and I have received a quality edit that I was comfortable publishing and selling, the good news for authors today is technology has made it possible to get as close to a professional edit as possible without draining your bank account. The good news for people working as editors, artificial intelligence is not going to replace them. It's good for mechanical tasks like grammar, syntax, style consistency. It's not good with irony, humor, and nuance. It doesn't understand human emotion. One of the most important things in your writing is to produce emotion in your readers. AI cannot help you with that. Cannot. About 63% of traditional and hybrid publishers are using AI as a first-pass tool to clean up manuscripts before the human editor refines it. AI does not have perceptual expectations. It looks at every letter in the word. It doesn't have typoglycemia, and it knows everything in the 1,100-page Chicago Manual of Style. It can locate what it needs and tell you things that you need to be corrected in seconds. Because I have put stuff in there and clicked submit and thought I was going to have to wait, and I didn't. It was like almost instantly there. If you have an editor that you can afford and have a good working relationship, stick with that person. If you don't, and you cannot afford to pay one, AI can give you a decent job for free. And I'm not talking about the apps that are available. in like Microsoft Word. I'm not talking about those apps. Let me explain this. But let me give you this warning first. You must never let AI rewrite what you wrote. Let it tell you where the errors are and you fix them. It will teach you to be a better writer. Because if you keep having to fix the same error over and over and over, it's going to click. Okay, and you'll never do that again. Okay, it'll make you a better writer. AI cannot be copyrighted. And there are programs that can detect if something was written by AI. In the United States, it cannot be copyrighted. I don't know about other places. The U.S. Copyright Office and courts have consistently ruled that only humans can be considered authors under the law. Beginning in 2023, you must disclose any use of AI tools when applying for a copyright. Failing to do so could invalidate your registration. But AI is acceptable as a collaborative tool. I use AI to create images for a blog post, and I use it to write marketing material. It's much better at it than I am. I just give it what I want in there, and it'll write it up beautiful. In fact, I used it for this meeting. I had AI write up a little marketing thing. The blurb on the back of my next book will be written by AI. I already have several versions that AI wrote. If it's a manuscript I plan to publish and sell, I only use it for editing, nothing else. Yes? I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Yeah, don't worry, I got y'all covered. AI is in almost everything, including the grammar apps that you pay for. I'm not talking about using those apps because there is a problem with those apps. The only editing app that currently integrates the 18th edition of the Chicago Manual of Style is Perfected 6, which works with Microsoft Word, but you have to pay for 2 subscriptions to make it work. You need a subscription to the online version of Chicago Manual of Style and a subscription to the Perfected app for it to work in MS Word. Word has an editor built into its software, but it is the 16th edition of Chicago published in 2010. And you can check that out, just look, and it'll tell you it's using Chicago, the 16th edition. It hasn't been updated in 16 years. So you don't necessarily want to rely on that. Other grammar tools like Grammarly, ProWriting Aid, or Language Tool rely on general grammar and style rules and do not currently offer integration with the Chicago Manual of Style 18th edition. So since you're publishing to sell, you want it to look as much like a traditionally published book as possible. So you want to use the latest edition. Now here we go. You don't have to pay for editing if you use the free versions of ChatGPT, Microsoft's Copilot, Google's Gemini, or X's Grok, and you can tell it exactly what you want it to do. Yep, just, okay. Yes, all of these handouts can be downloaded from the website, but I have a few of them here that you can look like. I don't like printing out 20 of these and only 5 people want them for some reason, but y'all can pass these around, take a look at them. It gives the pros and cons of each of the available free editions. And bottom line is its recommendation is Microsoft Copilot. I have used all of them. Grok is like a naughty little child. You tell it what to do, and it decides it can do it better. I told it, put the edits in each paragraph, put the reason for your edits under that paragraph. And what does it do? It gives me like 4 paragraphs and then lists a bunch of edits. So I talked to it like, Mom, I did not tell you to do that. Put it under each paragraph. Update. And it'll, okay, Mom. Grok's a bit of a mess. Microsoft Copilot seems to work. It does what I tell it to do. It is the good child. Gemini is, all of these have, the free versions have a limit on the word count. So even with Microsoft Copilot, I will put so many words in it, like maybe if I have a 1,600 word chapter, I'll put 800 words, and it'll edit it the way I want it. And then you can put the next 800 words right underneath that. And then it'll edit that too. And you don't have to tell it all over again what to do. But, you know, just play with all of them and find out which one you think would be best for you. Now, and if you want that thing, the thing that's going around, you can download it from our website. Go to the events page and today's date, and you will see, I think I have 3 or 4, all the websites that I'm handing out today. And this is being recorded. If you want to listen to it again, you can download the handout that some people were writing, filling in the blanks on, and do that as well. Let's see. Okay. All the free versions have word limits. You cannot upload a complete manuscript and get a decent edit, because you can do it, but then it'll skip sections. And that's a mess to try and figure out what you did and what you skipped. Okay. All right. Now, if you wanted it to do the whole book, you could always pay for the upgrade. Now, I can put more words in Grok. If it wasn't such a snotty little child, I'd use it more, because I have a premium account with X that's $8 a month. So I do get more words in that one. I'm just not crazy about the way their app works, their AI works. Okay, you have to be very specific when you put what you want. If you have the handout, that people were filling out the blanks on and had the chart, I have the example of an AI prompt that I use. Okay. And what I use is I tell it what I want it. Edit this, or this is my prompt. Edit this article according to the 18th edition of the Chicago Manual of Style, with attention to spelling, grammar, punctuation, homographs, clarity, and consistency. Visually highlight each edit you make within the text in bold, highlight, and brackets. It won't use brackets, it uses little stars. I don't know why it won't use the brackets, but it does set it off. Exclude from your edits capitalizing pronouns that refer to God, because I just don't do it. There's only 2 Bibles that capitalize pronouns that refer to God, and the rest of them don't. So I don't think it's that important. And I tell it to preserve my voice, narrative tone, while refining sentence structure and mechanics.